Welcome. The workshop you are about to join is taken from the Maui Millionaire's wildly successful How to Build a Level 3 Business home study course. You'll join Wall Street Journal and Business Week best-selling author David Finkel as he shares with you the key shift you must make to build a business that is independent of you, the business owner. David speaks from experience. He is a self-made multi-millionaire who has built and sold several multi-million-dollar businesses. Over the past decade, David has helped hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs take their business and wealth building to the next level. Now it's your turn. Enjoy this information-rich live recording.
How many of you have businesses that if you were to leave your existing business and go on vacation for 12 months, with the ability to check in maybe once or twice by phone for a couple of hours per month, when you got back from your vacation 12 months later, how many of you would still find a business? A couple of you? Cool. How many of you would find a business that was healthier, more profitable, and also running just as smoothly, if not smoother, than when you left it? Okay, so we don't see any hands with that one either. How many of you would like to find that? And that's what we're going to be talking about here this weekend. We're going to be talking about how do you build a business that works without you needing to be there to work it. Now, some of you I ran into yesterday where, David, I know you talked about doing this over the course of maybe 36 months. How do we do it in, a year, 3 days? Is it going to take you 3 days to build your business so that you can leave it and have it run smoothly without you? No, not unless you already have that before you came here. It's going to take you some time. It's going to take months, perhaps even 36 months, 60 months, but it can happen depending where you are and the focus and commitment you bring to it. What do you think is the greatest challenge facing entrepreneurs? What do you guys think? What do you think is the greatest challenge? Shout out the answer when you have it. Time, I'm hearing it. How many think that time is the greatest challenge? Any other answers for that? Letting go of control, doing everything yourself. Wait a second here. Time, control, doing it all yourself. Isn't that really like the three sides of a triangle? Time. I don't have any time because I do everything myself so that I don't lose control. We all see it. That's really three sides of the same thing. Is there a different answer that doesn't fall into the control, time, freedom piece of it? Challenges that face entrepreneurs. Isn't it real? Capital, not having enough money to expand perhaps, or to grow, or to start, or to do the business the manner in which you want to do it. Steve? Great. The difficulty of finding the ways to focus your time on what's most important for the business. New ideas. How do you have the ideas to expand the business, expand the marketing side of it, expand the products or services that you offer? Back over here. Managing growth. Yeah, how do you handle when you're growing 50, 100% per year? How do you staff up appropriately? How do you have the systems that don't burst at the seams? What else? Finding great talent for your team. Anyone ever have a challenge with talent in your teams? Just about every hand goes up that ever had a business with other people working for you. Any others there? And I'll share with you what I think is the greatest challenge that entrepreneurs face myself, if we're to prioritize it. The challenge that I see, and we have a name for it. We call it the self-employment trap. The self-employment trap. You start off in your business because, what was the reason why most of you started off in your business? I mean, how many of you started off your business because you were sick and tired of listening to people who didn't know what they were doing or doing the business wrong? Being an employee just wasn't what you wanted. You wanted what? Did you want freedom or did you want some other word that starts with a C and ends with an L? You wanted control, didn't you? How many of you started your business because you wanted to be in charge? Because you were sick and tired of listening to people who you were smarter than, you knew better than. I'm saying all these things because I'm so guilty of every single one in there. So you started off your business because you wanted control. Not every business, but many businesses. Some people start off their business because of an accident. Other people start off their business because of a desire to do something. But control is certainly in the mix for most entrepreneurs when they get started. And so they build a business that really isn't a business. They build a business which is merely a job in camouflage. So they start off and they're working. And as you start working, pretty soon you find that you have a business that works well, but it's all revolving around you. So if you think about it, your business, here's your business, and you put you right in the middle. And so you're dealing with all the key parts of the business. You're the one running it. And truthfully, if your business requires your presence on a daily basis, you do not have a business. You have a job. Now, you might have a great job, earning lots of money, successful, all those things. But as long as you're here in the middle of your business where it all revolves around you, you don't have the freedom that you want. And the more you can pull yourself out of the middle and build a business that's independent of you, the greater the degree of control you have over yourself and your time, the greater the degree of freedom that you'll enjoy. And all the rest are the reasons why we got started with a business. What I'd like you to do, actually, is I'd like you to turn to a neighbor. I'd like you to turn to a neighbor and share with them. And just on the sharing parts here, how many of you came here with either a spouse or a business partner? Great. This is the last time I'd recommend that you sit next to them during the workshop. Here's why. If you sit next to them in the workshop and share, you're limiting your opportunity, not just one-fold, but two-fold. You're limiting it because you're hearing from someone you can talk to pretty much all the time. And two, you're also limiting because you're only getting one perspective of the workshop. I want you to get two separate perspectives of the workshop. For those of you that have more than one business, here's your great opportunity. Have one of you focus on one business for this whole workshop. Have the other of you focus on the other business. For example, if I were here with Diane and I were attending together, I would maybe have her focus on Maui Millionaires, and maybe I would focus on Maui Mastermind, which are two separate companies, and she would do one, I would do the other. Then at each of the breaks or at the end of the days or at the end of the workshop, we would sit down and compare notes in detail, and we would get twice the exposure in terms of the ideas and usefulness of applying the ideas that were here. So consider that. Now, I don't need you to switch just yet, but at the first break I suggest that you switch. But I am going to ask you to turn to share with somebody else why you got started in the business that you did, and have that be someone you didn't come here with this morning. When you share with them, if you don't have a business now, share it from the perspective of why you would start a business. What is it that drives you, motivates you? What called you into doing your own business? I'm going to give you 2 minutes. That means 1 minute one way, 1 minute the other, monitoring your own time. Go. That'd be an incentive. Different question. How's it going? These are the reasons you get started, right? Well, many of you have showed your old boss or your old workplace, right? You've grown into a business that maybe is harder to do than the old one, but you've shown them, right? But do you have more of the control of your own time so you can spend with whoever you want? Or how many of you found that being quote-unquote self-employed, because that's what a lot of people in their business lives are, takes more energy than when you were an employee? Who's found that being self-employed is tougher sometimes? How many of you have found that the person who initially pushed you into the business is no longer your biggest cheerleader? Because maybe they resent the time you're spending away a little bit, right? Or they want more from you, and you feel torn between two conflicting needs. And how many of you found that the fun initially has worn a little thin from the business that you're doing, or the way that you're doing the business that you're doing? Maybe it's become old hat, or it just isn't quite so much fun. So the outcome we're looking for here this weekend is to give you, over the course of 3 days, the tools, the specifics you need to be able to take a business from the front end and over the course of a period of time, turn it into a hands-off business. We'll call it a level 3 business. And I'll go into each of these things in detail in a moment. One of the key parts of this workshop is not the information I share with you. It's the fact that you've taken time out of your life to actually do the workshop. So the responsibility for this workshop is partially on us for providing good content and structure for you, but a great degree of the value from the workshop is the fact that how you do the workshop. How many of you know that there are questions you should answer about your business and plan, but you've just gotten so busy doing the business that you haven't taken the time to do that work? Of course. I'm sitting there working over the last several months on the materials for this workshop, and I'm thinking, wow, I need to answer that question too. And it was this process of discovery for me as well. It's always the case for business owners that the status quo is not to consistently ask these questions. We have to go out of our way to make the time to have that happen. And these 3 days are your opportunity. So how you play in these 3 days is going to make the difference for what you get. I'm hoping that when we have exercises, you're going to play full out. when we're done and we break for meals and I give you homework for the meals to discuss with your partners, I hope that you do that as well. I'll give you some more specifics of how to make that even better in just about 20 or 30 minutes. But for the moment here, how you play is going to make the biggest difference. And then the final part that's going to make the biggest difference is everybody around you. You couldn't do this workshop alone and get the same result as you can do it here together with the other 75, 80 people who will be here. You couldn't. Why? Because you will see so much, like, look, for example, one of the concepts I'm going to be sharing with you is a concept of what we call a core value process. We're going to talk about that later. That's one of our last parts of today's work. And it's designing a process that has more value for your clients or customers who buy from you in such a way that you can create more value in the marketplace, and when you create more value, guess what you get to collect more of? Collect more money as well. You take yourself out of the commodity race by doing that. Well, it's very difficult to see your business and this process just yourself, but if you look at how it applies to 4 or 5 or 6 other businesses, it's much easier to see for other people's businesses, and at the same time you're looking at other people's businesses, you're learning it for your own business as well. Does that make sense? I mean, it's like this. How many of you, when you get dressed, it's easier to see when someone's tie is crooked or shirt's misbuttoned on somebody else than it is for yourself? I mean, we have to look in a mirror to see ourselves. Well, everyone else in this room is going to be at different times a mirror for your business and also an example for you to learn from. We, as human beings, the way we process information, contrast is really important for us. How many of you could imagine that if this was a white background, actually, if I was standing in front of a salmon color background, this pink background, you would start to lose where I am in here because you didn't have the contrast to see edges. So when you see your business in relationship to other people and how they do their businesses, the concepts go into much sharper focus for you for your own use. Does that make sense? And so it's one of the reasons why it's not just the fact that you're going to be doing the work. It's not going to be just the fact that you're going to be having other people to do the work with. It's the fact that you get to see your business in relationship to other people, how they do this. How many of you regularly talk with other business owners about how they do their business and then look at how you do your business and give each other feedback and coaching? Raise your hands if you do that. About a third of you here. Fantastic. I'm hoping out of this you guys will consider, maybe you'll meet some people that you might want to mastermind with later on and follow up with each other 2 weeks later or a month later and check in, how's it going and how can you support each other for that. You don't have to do business with them, but you can go on an ongoing basis and mastermind with them to see how you can work together to help each other in your separate independent businesses. All the benefits sometimes of having partners without having to worry about the downsides of partnerships. So those are just some of the ideas for you there. Is there a way to build a business that doesn't require you to be there to have the business run? How many of you this sounds like a pipe dream? Be honest. Thank you. It's possible for some businesses to do that, but not my business, right? How many of you are in a business that what you're really selling, you think, is your own personal time and talent? I'm a doctor who performs surgery. How could I ever sell someone else's talent? I'm a plumber who services, people's homes. How could I ever sell someone? I'm a craftsman that builds high-end sound systems. I'm an attorney who provides cutting-edge legal advice. You can fill in the blank with whatever you want. One of the things that you will get before you leave here is that any business can become a level 3 business. And I can prove it to you here in 30 seconds or less. Is there somebody else in your industry that has built a level 3 business? Somebody. Like the medical care. Is there any medical business that does surgery where the owner of that business doesn't have to show up to perform the work? Even one? Like, how about 1,000 or 100? I mean, there's many of them. Surgery centers that are owned by physicians or owned by business people who've never, the sight of blood would make them squirm and faint. The people you wouldn't want doing your surgery, right? CPA practices that are run by people who maybe aren't even CPAs but have a business that they can step back and own, or legal firms that the managing partners are not the people who own it. The people who own it maybe have stepped back into a role that they just show up once every month for a meeting. I don't care what the business is. As long as there's one other person who's done it, you guys can do the same thing. And the question then becomes, how do you do that? And we'll spend 3 days developing how to do that. But that end result we call a level 3 business. And I want to go through in detail this progression. Now, for most of you who've already been familiar with the terms, I want you to look at it fresh And I want you to hear it with more detail from the specific needs of where is your business on this on the spectrum I'm going to share with you, and where do you want your business to be. So, starting off, you've got a level 1 business. And for those of you who want to follow along in the materials, you can do so. I'm going to be going through starting on page 5. So as we go through on page 5 here, starting off with level 1 business, this is the starting point of your business, right? This is where you come up with the idea for the business. My point here, or my most important leverage point of this level of a business, is to have it somehow tie into something you're passionate about. I remember one of the first businesses I ever started that I totally flopped in. It was a weight loss business. I was not, at the time I was 20, how old was I? I was 20, I think I was 21 or 22 years old. I was not passionate about weight loss at that time in my life. How many of you know 20 or 21-year-old Olympic level athletes that are passionate about weight loss? What was I passionate for starting that business? The promise of making all this money. Not just making all this money, but making all this money what? Fast. Is that a great reason to start a business? In my opinion, that's one of the worst reasons to start a business. Because somewhere along the lines, you're going to cut corners and cheat yourself out on the experience of building something that really lasts. But I did, and I flopped. You can imagine. After that experience and other businesses I've started, it's always been around passions. And I observe lots of people have come to me and said, David, will you invest in my business? And one of the first questions I'll ask them is to share with me what the business is. And I'm watching them. I'm not listening to them. I'm watching to see, are they truly passionate about the business they're describing? And 9 times out of 10, the people who come to me with these ideas, they're not. They're passionate about the money they can make from the business. If you're only in business to make the money, it's more difficult to make the money, and the money won't last. It's hard to build an enduring business. Most people who are there just for the money, what do? They build the business fast and quick so they can do what with the business? Sell it for a quick profit. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about building a business that will last. So even when you step out and you've sold the business still has an enduring value, which, by the way, means you'll sell it for more money. So passion is the biggest one here. On the level 1 business, who's doing all the work? You are, of course. There's really no business at that point that really exists separate to you. The key for most people is they think they want to make the money, or the other part that I see go wrong with level 1 businesses is they focus really on planning it all out. Who are my planners in the room? You're going to have to be real careful. You don't want to live in level 1 for more than 3 to 6 months at the very most. It should never take you more than 3 to 6 months to get to level 2 early stage, which is where you're actually offering your product or service for what? For sale. Now, if you're an inventor and it takes you longer to develop your process on a part-time basis to get your patent just right, fair enough. But for the majority of businesses, if you're not selling your product or service, which is at level 2, and I'll call it level 2E, which stands for level 2 early stage. At level 2 early stage, your focus is on proving that your product or service actually will do what? It'll sell. Someone's willing to buy it from you that could be profitable for your company. Maybe it's not profitable right away because of you don't have enough business to make the scales work for you in terms of the cost to produce whatever it is that you're doing. But the business has some kind of economic sustainability to it, which means that you need to be able to sell it. The market's got to be able to accept it. Does the market need to accept it right from the very beginning? Usually the answer is yes. Most people blame the marketplace. Where does the fault lie if it doesn't sell? Is it the marketplace is just so stupid? If you really thought that, how are you going to service a marketplace that you think is stupid? How could that possibly work? So my thoughts to you is that in most cases, if it's not working, it probably means that you need to do something different, which is one of your great strengths. As an early stage level 2 business owner, your business is so small, because it's probably just you and maybe 1 or 2 other people, you can change on a dime. Where's the first place you should look to change in an early stage level 2 business if it's not actually working the sales part? Do you change your product or service first, or where do you change first? Change how you're marketing it. Most business owners who are much more the planners or operational people, they go and try to redesign their product or their service. Mistake. The first place to tweak and play around with is your marketing end of it, if it's not selling. changing the pricing points, changing the way that you price it, changing the way that you offer it. What's the main benefits that you're doing? We'll talk more about these things later through the workshop. But here's the best part. What's the least expensive thing to change? The marketing. All it costs you is to update a website or update some sales brochures or update a script that you use when you go talk with somebody. If you change your product or service, that might cost you a lot because you might have all this inventory that you've got to get rid of or something. So that's the early stage there. How do you know when you're ready to move up to the next part, which is level 2, middle stage? I'll call it L2M here, level 2 middle stage. You know that you're ready to move there when your business is actually consistently able to sell whatever product or service it is that you offer. And so at this point, your business is actually sustainable. You know that it will work over time. A level 2 business tends to be what I call all about maximizing you. I'll call it max you. The business is designed to take what you do and just leverage it to the fullest. For example, the easiest example we've all had experiences for, how many of you in the last 24 months have gone into a doctor for a visit? Okay, how about the last 36 months? Okay. Last 5 years? I'm waiting for one more hand back here and say, okay, good. I want to make sure I'm choosing an experience we've all had, right? So you go to the doctor's office and you show up at her office and the first thing you do is you check in, right? Is the doctor there to greet you? No. You step in, there's a receptionist or someone who's answering phones and typing away, doing some medical billing maybe at the same time, or you go talk with a person who's there to arrange with you. They take you back to a room after you filled in the paperwork and give them your insurance card and your signature that you'll make sure you pay them. They take you to a room, and then is the doctor waiting for you in that room? No, they put you in the room, and a nurse comes in or an assistant comes in, gets everything all set and ready so that when the doctor comes in, she's with you for as quickly as she can be to still give you the result that you need. Some doctors are there for 10 minutes, some for an hour, depending what the problems are going on. Some are there for 2 or 3 minutes. Mostly they're going to be there for 5 or 10 minutes. But their goal is to treat you as well as they can, but as quickly as they can do what? Get to the next consult. And the better they are about doing nothing but these things that generate revenue, which are these consults and these examinations and these procedures with people, the more money their business makes. Their business is designed to maximize what key critical ingredient? Yeah, the time of the actual producer, in this case the doctor. And everything else is tried to be handed off to somebody else. That's the prototypical level 2 middle stage business. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. But this is what it means to be self-employed. This is all about being self-employed at this place as a level 2 middle stage business owner. The business doesn't exist if you're not there. If the doctor doesn't show up, can they see patients in the office? The nurses can't see them, right? The front office staff can't do examinations, and at least we certainly want them doing the surgeries or doing the different types of exams, right? I'm hoping they wouldn't do it. They're not going to give injections or something like that. So in your businesses, think about that. Leveraging yourself will only take you to a certain place. At a certain point, you're leveraged out. At a certain point, you can't do any more. I mean, what's the minimum time that a doctor can spend with a patient? I mean, at a certain point, it just becomes ridiculous. They need to have at least a couple minutes to actually listen and do this, and most procedures or what they're doing might even take half an hour or 10 minutes or what. But there's a certain point where they can only see so many people, and even if they could see one person every minute, there's still a limit for their business if their business is them as the producer for the business. Now, there are other types of businesses where it's not about operations, which in a doctor's office, it's about much more of an operationally driven business. And I don't mean operations like surgery. I mean operations as in the actual work that's being produced. There are other organizations that are much more what I call sales and marketing driven. That the key step is not about doing the work of the business. The key step is about selling whatever the product or service is. How many of you are in businesses where the sales and marketing piece really is what drives your business forward? Okay, about a third of you. How many of you are in businesses that you think that the production of whatever product or service is the key piece that drives your business? About half of you. And how many of you in a business that doesn't really fit neatly into either category? Because there's some businesses that don't. Fair enough. But on a level 2 business, if it's the middle stage, you're exhausted. How do you know you're in a level 2 business? Because you think, I can't do anything differently in terms of using my time better and making money. You're kind of trapped in that mindset. You think, well, maybe if I got to the office a little bit earlier or stayed a little bit later, or maybe if I hired a new assistant who could follow me along and I could just throw notes to her as I went along, I could save a minute there and a minute there. And maybe if I skipped my lunch and she could feed me almonds as I'm walking to the next room, right? At a certain point, you can't leverage yourself anymore. A level 2 middle stage business always has a ceiling on it. It always does. It's a trap. And how do most people try to claw their way out of that trap? By working harder, climbing faster, leveraging themselves. What they don't see is that they're the problem. The more you try to leverage you as your solution out of this level 2 middle stage trap, the more trapped you become. It's kind of like, how many of you have ever walked into a spider's web before? Like you're hiking along, and then all of a sudden, it's even more fun when you're walking with a friend, and all of a sudden you see them go, blah! You guys, and you think, well, they're on, maybe some flashback drugs when they were in college or something. But you've walked in a spider's web, and you start just kind of messing around to try to get the spider's web off. And the more you do it, the more you kind of smear it all over yourself. Has anyone else had that experience? A few of you. Some of you are thinking you're strange, David, but most of you already have proven that and know that to be the case. But that's what people try to do by getting out of this level 2 middle stage, by you working harder or leveraging more. It does not work. The way out is for you to do less in your business, which seems counterintuitive and impossible. Because if you do less, what would happen to your business? What do most level 2 middle stage people think? The business would go right down, would die. Yet if that's true, that you think that's the problem. That's the problem. And I've been there with businesses before. I've been there with businesses I've been earning over $500,000 a year doing. I've been there with businesses that I've been earning a lot of money with. And I was the sticking point. Because I kept trying to leverage me. And the more I leveraged me, the more I became the problem. So when you're able to see past that, the next place for you to go is what I call level 2, advanced stage. Level 2, advanced stage. This is where you start actually building a business. I know technically level 1, level 2 early, level 2 medium. I mean, certainly you're owning a business, but you're really not owning a business. You're owning a job by that point. But when you get to level 2 advanced stage, that's where you're starting to actually build a business that has a life starting to be independent of you. And for those who want to look and follow the manuals on page 8, I guess the way I think about it is that's like a teenager, or kind of like they're getting to a place where the business starts to have a life outside of the parents, outside of you. And as you look at an advanced stage level 2 business, what you're seeing is that you're bringing in key people who work together with you to run that business. An example for this, I remember back in one of the companies that over the years I've built up several different level 3 companies. I've built up companies that have never gone past level 2 middle stage. I've built up companies that I've sold for lots and lots of money. I've built up companies that I've had go under and lost the businesses. I've done lots of those different things. And I can remember one of the companies that I built, we were at that middle stage level 2 business. And the company was generating about $600-ish thousand a year in sales. A pretty prototypical mom and pop shop. And then we brought in one of the most important hires we ever made, which was an operations manager to take over the operations part of the business. Because myself and my business partner, we were not operations people. We were sales and marketing people. Now, she was expensive. At the time, we thought, how could we ever afford her? She was $75,000 a year for that first year of hiring her. That first year that we hired her, to the next year, we went up to $1.5 million in sales. The next year, we went over $3 million in sales. Was that a good hire? Absolutely. Did she generate all the value? No. She didn't. She freed up our time so we could go on and do the other things in the business that did generate the value. She absolutely contributed to it. Did the business suffer by having us no longer involved in the doing operations of the business? No, the business was actually better. Why? If you don't like the operations area of your business and you're stuck doing it, are you going to do a good job? No way. If you don't like the sales portion of your business and you're stuck doing it, are you going to do an exceptional job? You're not, because it's not your talent to do that. So as you go to an advanced stage level 2 business, what you're really doing is you're expanding what you're able to do. And think about it this way. In every business, there are 5 key areas. You have your sales and marketing function. Now, some companies will separate out sales from marketing. That's fine. But from the functional standpoint, sales and marketing is one key area of your business. You have the operational area of your business, which is the doing of the actual fulfillment of the work of the business. It's also all the back office things that need to be happening to make sure that business happens. Then you have some kind of employee or team component. Most companies will call it HR. I just never liked HR. I just like calling it team. So you'll hear me refer to it as the team. It just feels a little bit more along the lines of what my value system is. I don't like looking at people as resources. I prefer to look at people as teammates. That maybe it's my sports background. Maybe it's just I've been looked at as a resource too much in my life, but I just prefer that way. Then you also have the financial area of your business. This is the person who's looking after the money side of things. This is the person who's measuring and monitoring the flow of money into and out of your business, the financial reporting, the financial controls, and so forth, the accounts receivable, the accounts payable. And then finally, you have the leadership aspect. And I'm going to call this the executive leadership. What do I mean by that? Or the big picture leadership. Every one of these areas requires leadership for sure. But somebody needs to be stepping back and looking at the whole company. This would be the example of the person who's leading the executive team who's playing that CEO role, who's getting the heads of these different parts of your business to get together and communicate effectively to have a cohesive strategy that goes across the business, that looks at the whole business, not the parts of the business in isolation. Now, going back to our example here, in a level 2 business, who's doing all this work for the most part? You are. In a early stage level 2, it's you plus a couple of leveragers or assistants. People help do little things for you. In a middle stage, it's you with people who kind of run different pieces for you, but everything comes back to you. Now, how many of you are, again, the people who like the sales and marketing aspect of your business first and foremost? Great. So here's what you do. You don't, first of all, spread your time equally between all 5 of these areas. The people who love sales and marketing, what they do is they put 60, 70, 80% of their time over here, and then the majority of that little piece that's left, where does that go? It doesn't go everywhere else. It goes to wherever's crying the loudest. And usually, if you're sales and marketing driven, what next area is crying the loudest? Usually it's the operation area. What normally gets shortchanged in a level 2 medium stage business as it's growing? Team, leadership, and the financial part of it. And then you wake up one day and wonder, where did all that money go? How many of you have ever seen that happen with a level 2 business? Absolutely. Especially for the couple of CPAs we have in the room. You've had them come into you and say, here, and they give you a box. Not files, not a CD-ROM of QuickBooks chart of accounts, but a box. And inside that box is not papers that are neatly lined up, but just like crammed in there. Like receipts that are like moldy and got stains from the food that they ate. They must have used that for the napkin or something. But sorry, the visual with that, it's quite tasty. Yet that's how most people do that. As you move to an advanced stage, you're going to get rid of one of these areas or 2 of these areas first. When I say get rid of, I mean you're going to find somebody else. For me, we found our first key hire. Her name was Paige. And she took over this part of our business, which allowed us to put more attention on these other areas of the business and grow it. Your first key hire might be on the sales and marketing end. It might be to find a controller for your company. I don't know where your first key hire is. Typically, it's going to be sales and marketing, operations, or the financial piece. Sometimes it's on the team side, but not usually for that first key hire. Now, some companies will put the team underneath the operational area of the business, right? How many of you have seen companies where the team portion of it gets folded into as part of the operation of the business. No problem with that for a business that's fairly small. But as the business grows larger, at a certain point it probably does make sense to spread those out. Most companies don't have a sales and marketing person. They have a sales leader and they have a marketing leader. For the simplicity of the workshop, I'm going to treat both these areas together. However, in your company, what might you do? You might have two different people with that. And I'll go into later this afternoon about the differences between sales and marketing and how it relates to you building your business. And then finally, what's usually the last area of the business to go? The executive leadership. That's usually the last area of the business to go. And when you're able to hand off all parts of that business, what do you now have? What do you now have? A level 3 business. You've reached the promised land. And in that level 3 business, you have a business that is more than you. And what do you get to do now? You get to sell the business. You get to just enjoy the business if you choose to, as a passive business owner versus an actively stressed out level 2 self-employed person. Or the third thing that you can do when you reach level 3 is you can decide to step it up a notch. You can take your level 3 business and say, hey, I want to really explode this business. I want to make it just go massive. There's a difference between a level 3 business that's a 10, 20, 30, $40 million company and a $2 billion company or a $50 billion company. I want to make sure I qualify what we're doing here. All the things I'm going to teach you are going to help you build a business that might be a 5, a 10, a $50 million company. I can share with you how to do that. I don't know how to teach you how to build a $5 billion company or a $50 billion company. I've never done that. But to teach you how to build a company that's 5 to 50 million, I can teach you how to do that.
We hope you have enjoyed this introductory session from the How to Build a Level 3 Business Home Study course. You've just watched Session 1 of the 29-session course. For more information about this course or any other business or investing courses, workshops, and resources, please visit us on the web at www.mauimillionaires.com.